on.
Yeah, just take it.
Yeah, we're still have, like, we're just,
Respect.
it's fine, we just want to
Yeah.
approve the minutes unless Sandy gets here, we can do that.
Okay.
So we'll just start with introductions. And there's a sign-in sheet where you can write your name down. And your email if you're not already on the CCAC notification. And that helps us with the attendance on the minutes. So I'm Allie Pesh, and I'm the chair of the CCAC. And we usually say where we live, and I live here in Springs.
I'm a CCAC and the John Cathro.
Constance Words, I live on 250. And then
I'm Valerie Long, I live in Montreal.
I'm Josh Rector, I live out in Whitehall.
And now, I live in Earlysville, I represent you on the board.
I'm Jenny Moore, I represent you on the planning commission, and I live on Blue Ridge Avenue.
And I'm Mike Uncle, I live in Quarry Farm.
Brian Day, Emerald Ridge.
Michael Slats,
Easter?
I'm Bob Cross, I live on Wild Turkey Lane.
Okay, Susan, I live on University Road.
Andrew Newell, neighborhood planner, Albemarle County.
I'm Terry Miyamoto, I'm here for the Crozet Trails Tour, and I live in the Highlands.
Craig Redinger, live on Zlodax Road.
Martha Benninger on Providence. I'm Eleanor Metano, I live out on 250.
Paul Scarborough on Parsons Green Lane.
Bob Hughes, Parsons Green Lane.
Bill Sublett, Parsons Green Lane.
I'm Lori Schweller, I'm here on behalf of Verizon Wireless to present OE.
Nate Collins here on behalf of Verizon Wireless as well.
Jim?
Jim Duncan, Crozet.
Mike Marshall, Crozet Gazette.
Okay, so like I said, we don't have a forum, so we'll skip approving the minutes, and we can get right to the Little Explorers presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Renalbach. I'm a senior planner with the county, and I'm the lead planner reviewing the special use permit Little Explorers Discovery School. And their community meeting is on the agenda this evening, and so I'm just going to give a brief presentation of like why we're here, what the county's process is, and then turn it over to Christy Gillette, who is the applicant representing Little Explorers. So, like I said, this is a community meeting for this special use permit application. Is to share information about the proposed project, the review process, the policies, the regulations, and to gather any public input from nearby community members, nearby residents, property owners, the CCAC members, and a question and answer period with the applicant. This is a special use permit. It's a legislative review, which means that not only is there staff review of the application for how it compares to the comprehensive plan, but a legislative review also goes before the Planning Commission and is ultimately goes to the Board of Supervisors for either approval or denial. Zoning, probably many of you know what zoning is. Most cities and counties have laws that dictate what you can build or how you can use your property and where. And Albemarle County does have a zoning ordinance that groups different the land into different areas or zones to protect the health, safety, and welfare of its residences. These zones can include residential zones, commercial, industrial, or mixed-use zones. There are two main ways that the zoning ordinance groups developments, either the use of building, like uses of buildings, like I mentioned earlier, residential, commercial, industrial, institutional, or the size and shape of buildings, such as building height, setbacks, how far away buildings can be set from the road or set from property lines, as well as square footage of buildings. The zoning ordinance dictates what can be done by right today, which is just an administrative review. They submit an application, county staff reviews that application to ensure that it complies with the zoning ordinance, and if it does, it's approved. And then the zoning ordinance also dictates what uses are by special use permit. And special use permit uses require an extra level of review, and they, like I mentioned earlier, ultimately go to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for review and then either approval or denial. Special use permits and all legislative reviews are compared against the comprehensive plan. which establishes a 20-year vision for the county. It contains the overarching policies and recommendations and incorporates each of the master plans and small area plans as they are adopted by the board. These policies and recommendations are developed after extensive engagement with community members, and I know specifically with this community in Crozet, all of you are involved currently in updating your master plan. As I mentioned, each development area has a master plan including Crozet and contains the future land use recommendation for every property that's located within that development area. As I mentioned, this is a special use permit application, the Little Explorers, and it's to develop one of the uses listed in the zoning ordinance. A change in zoning is not proposed with the special use permit application, and the Board of Supervisors can impose certain conditions to mitigate the impacts of proposed uses. So this evening, one of the community meetings here is the Little Explorers Discovery School, and the FD 2020-1 is the application file number with the county. And then a quick overview of what they are proposing is they have submitted a request to amend their existing special use permit, which is number SP 2018-6, to permit an increase in the attendance at an existing child day center to up to 50 students on a 2.25 acre parcel, and that parcel is where Crozet Baptist Church is located on St. George Avenue. And new dwelling units are proposed with this application. The existing zoning for that property on St. George is R2 residential, which permits by right 2 residential units per acre. And then by special use permit, there are several uses that can be applied for, including a child day center, which the Little Explorers is, as well as religious assembly, community center, private school. And as I mentioned, with the special use permit, zoning doesn't change, so the R2 residential will be the same. In the future land use, the current Crozet master plan for this property on St. George Avenue is neighborhood density residential, which recommends residential density of 3 to 6 units per acre, as well as specific non-residential uses, which include institutional uses such as places of worship, public and private schools, and the early childhood education centers. And then a brief timeline of this proposal. First, after the applicant submits the proposal, is staff review as well as this community meeting. So we're currently in this phase of staff review. After the staff review, the application goes to a public hearing before the Planning Commission, and currently Little Explorers is scheduled tentatively to go to the Planning Commission on Tuesday, April the 21st, 2020. And a Board of Supervisors public hearing where the final decision will be made has not been scheduled yet. And that's the end of my presentation, so I'll turn it over to Christy Gillette. She's the applicant for this presentation. And I've also got a sign-up sheet with me in the back, so if anyone would like more information on this as we move forward in the process and would like to know when the Board of Supervisors date is scheduled for, you can sign up on that, and I'll be sure to email you or call you when that's scheduled.
So I did prepare a PowerPoint and then didn't realize it was actually going to be nice, so I printed it.
Yeah, I wondered if the projector's not working, and so.
So in hindsight,
Totally fine.
it's okay.
It's totally fine. This works.
Yeah.
We can share people back here.
I feel like most of you aren't here for me, so,
Yeah, I don't see any St. George Avenue residents.
which is very different than 2 years ago.
Last time there was a lot of
St.
St.
George
George Avenue residents.
Okay, so hi, I'm Christy Gillette. I was here 2 years ago presenting, and 2 years later, I'm here to increase my enrollment, which is really exciting. So things worked out. So I'm, again, as you said, looking for an increase in our enrollment, is essentially in a nutshell what we're looking for. We opened in 2019 with a capacity of 25 students, and our capacity has been reached since July of 2019. And we have a current wait list of 27 families. That's actually 29 as of this afternoon. So there's clearly still a need in Crozet for more preschool. And so the church has the space, and we're hoping to use it. Up until now, we have utilized just the children's wing, so we have not been open on Mondays because they use it on Mondays. And with this new space in the basement, we can actually be open on Mondays too. So it's kind of like more kids and more time. So on slide 3, there's a picture there of the basement room on the left and then one of our current rooms. The Department of Social Services, they are estimating that the new room can fit 20 new students of preschoolers and 30 school age, so we can have our school age program exist downstairs while our preschool programs exist upstairs, which is another bonus for the new space. Right now they're kind of a small school age group that's functioning, crossing over preschoolers, and it's not a bad thing, but it would be nice to have the big kids downstairs and preschoolers upstairs. And so with the space that we have, we actually could request up to almost 75 spots. So our number of 50 really just is still less than we could do. I don't plan to come back here again in this case. I plan to keep it at 50. So in our first presentation before we opened, we had some concern about the noise from outdoor play. So we remedied that with kind of splitting up our time outside and putting up a fence, and it seems to be a non-issue after reaching out to the neighbors about this new expansion, and they don't seem at all upset about it, which is great. But the noise from outside play will still remedy that with taking time outside. We won't have 50 kids outside at one time. We'll rotate in groups so that classes have their designated outdoor time. And we have it separated where preschool's on one half and school age is on the other half. The impact from traffic, our original plan and what we've been using is a car line for drop-off, which is great for now, but the car line kind of backs up all the way to St. George and double our capacity, and we're going to be out on the road. So we're going to change that to parking and coming inside, and instead having kind of a drop-off morning window of half an hour, which they're welcome to come later than that, but our goal time is to spread it out 5 minutes into a half an hour, where kids will get walked into the school instead of the car line. And then the traffic pattern so far has been kind of keeping on, distance-wise, on this side of Crozet towards downtown, rather than that way. So we expect that to remain the same, which the closest neighbors to our actual school exist in that direction. So they haven't really been impacted much by the traffic. The remaining schedule after our morning drop-off, we have a dismissal that takes place at a half day. And so about half of our students will leave, actually about 2/3 of our students will leave at that time. And they'll also park and come into the building. And then we'll have more students arrive when the after-school children come, but that happens only on 2 buses, so that does not create more of a traffic issue. And then there's a staggered pickup because it's an after-school program, so around 4:30 to 5:30, coming and going a lot. And then some other uses that we haven't utilized at this point, but we've used some of them. But we have not done a parents' night out. We do plan to start adding parents' night out. So that would be up to 50 kids during those, if they happen. So if our enrollment increases to 50. And then summer camps. We have 8 weeks of summer camps that occur Monday through Friday. And then special events for the preschool would be another thing that might bring a little bit more traffic with the increased enrollment. So we do a holiday party and an end of year celebration. And then other potential impacts, we have no water or sewer demands, no changes to the land or the outdoor space from our proposed use. We still add more to our playground in time, but it's not any different than what we already had planned. And if this doesn't work out, we still can do that. And then no impacts on fire and police services. So the second page just shows kind of our plan for the new flow of traffic. So cars will enter exit, park, and not use the third lane. It's kind of all self-explanatory on there. You can kind of see where our playground is, and the new room is right in the middle.
Thank you.
Short and sweet. Any questions?
It's nice to have 60 parking spaces right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're offering more childcare for the community, so.
I'm glad you can open on Mondays.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's going to be a huge one.
Yeah.
So, I don't see any questions, and I think we can move on to Wild Turkey.
Congratulations, and I know the facility and it can easily handle that.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So as they're getting set up, I think they have a presentation. Good evening, my name is Andrew Newell. I'm a planner with Albemarle County, and I'm also the lead reviewer on this project, which is SP 2020 00004 Wild Turkey Cross Property Tier 3 Personal Wireless Service Facility. It's a mouthful. So this is a request for approval of a Tier 3 Personal Wireless Service Facility. Amy's presentation gave some background information about the comprehensive plan, how we evaluate site decisions as the county from a zoning perspective. Personal wireless service facilities are cell towers, so your cell phone provides data and voice service to your phone. We permit them in every zoning district within the county at different levels, on different tiers based on the size and impact of the facility from a visibility standpoint. Tier 1s are basically co-locations on existing structures, so if you hide a cell phone antenna within a church steeple, that's a Tier 1. It's pretty much camouflage, it's hidden, it's not a new structure. A Tier 2 is what we could usually call a treetop tower. That's a relatively small facility, less visible, can be approved administratively by staff. And a Tier 3 tower, which is what this one is everything else in there. It does include any tower located within an avoidance area, which is an area the county's identified as kind of a sensitive area from a visual qualities perspective. That includes state scenic highways, including Route 250, which is why this is a Tier 3 facility that's subject to a special use permit and Board of Supervisors approval. Lori Schwell and Nate Holler are here tonight as the applicant's representatives, and we'll provide some more information about the tower. But if you have any questions about the county's procedures, let me know. This is not really addressing the Crozet master plan. This is outside of the Crozet development area. We really handle within the county's comprehensive plan. We don't have really site-specific recommendations. We do have a personal wireless service facilities policy, which covers some standards about how we evaluate visibility of site selection as a county. But it's mostly within the comp plan and zoning ordinance. So I'll let Nate and Lori for some info.
I just want to jump in real quick and disclose for the record, I'm Valerie Long, and Lori Schwaller and I both work for the same law firm, so I'm just here listening and just want to make everyone aware of that. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Lori Schweller, Tony McWilliams, Long, representing Verizon Wireless. Nate Holland is with NBNC, which is a consultant for Verizon Wireless. We also have a handout, so I'll just send that around, but it looks like we have good visuals today, so I'll go ahead and use this to show you our presentation. As Andrew described, wireless facilities in the county are classified into tiers, and for the purposes of this presentation, it's just important to note that what we're applying for is a Tier 3, which requires a special use permit, which is why we're presenting the project to you at community meeting. This site is located off of Wild Turkey Lane on the south side of Route 250 West. I put Fox Chase here just to give you the bearings. Then over here you can see Blue Ridge Builder Supply. Can you see my finger? No. Okay. And this is just the outline of the property on the GIS map. So here we're pointing to the small lease area. It's a very small lease area, and it's pretty close to the road, pretty close to 250 on a relatively flat parcel. And here, we're giving you a little bit of a close-up of the lease area here. It's just a 30 by 30 foot lease area, which is quite small for these facilities. The interesting thing about this site is there are already 2 wireless facilities on the property. So if you haven't noticed these before, it's likely you won't notice the one that we're proposing either. These are tier 2s, and what we're proposing was filed as a tier 2 because it meets all of the standards of a tier 2 wireless facility. And a tier 2 is, I sometimes call it a treetop, which means it's 10 feet above the height of a reference tree. But the reason why it needs to be filed as a tier 3 or special use permit is because Route 250, as you may or may not know, is a designated Virginia scenic byway, which is classified as an avoidance area in the zoning ordinance. And that doesn't mean you can't put wireless facilities, clearly. It just means that it has a different level of review. And so this is the current view when you're traveling east on 250, and my arrows are pointing to the existing wireless facility monopoles. And you can see how beautifully Java Brown, Sherwin-Williams Java Brown blends into these. I live at Corey Farm, and I had never noticed those 2 facilities until I did this project. So really great design. Another thing you should know about tier 2 facilities, and there's a close-up here. This photo was taken by Chris Taggart, our design planner for the county. So here's one of the existing facilities, and that's our balloon flown during the balloon test. And then here I'm just showing you, there's the reference tree. That's what we use to determine what the height of the monopole can be. It may not exceed 10 feet above the height of the closest tree within 25 feet of the proposed facility. And you might ask, well, why are you putting one here if there are already 2 other facilities here? And the reason is because they are so short, they're intended to be for a single wireless provider. So AT&T is on one of these, and Telus is on one of these, and this one is solely for Verizon Wireless. When it's 10 feet above the trees, you can only put one set of antennas on there and propagate your wireless signal above the trees. And so you will have 3 on one parcel, but all of them, again, will not be taller than 10 feet above the tree line. So here I'm just showing you the profile. This is a typical tier 2 wireless facility, monopole design. These antennas are what we call flush mounted. They would be, as you can see from this cross section, no more than 18 inches standoff from the face of the monopole. Technically, the zoning ordinance only permits 12 inches with 18 inches for a tilt, but that's a little out of date because the wireless providers no longer tilt their antennas. The antennas are within a metal casing and they're tilted remotely electronically. So we routinely request and are granted a special exception by the board to allow us to just do flush mounts 18 inches all the way around, and that gives us a much better signal. This is just illustrating, just for your information, the Virginia Byway extends from the US 29 bypass all the way to Winsboro. So that entire stretch would be an avoidance area for a wireless facility. We did conduct a balloon test, which we raised a large red balloon to the proposed height of the monopole, 116.5 feet, and drove all around the area to take photographs to see what the visibility would be. And so here is the site off of Wild Turkey Lane, which is right here. And you can see these blue buttons represent points where the balloon was not visible. The red represents points where it was visible. I'll show you those photographs. So when you're driving eastbound on Route 250, it's not visible, and that's because of the trees in the way, especially when there are leaves on the trees, it would be very difficult to see as it is difficult to see the ones that are there now. Similarly, westbound on Route 250, it's also obscured by the existing trees. And then farther back on 250 again, it's not visible from that location. Where you can see it peeking above the trees, this is a photo simulation. Right here, you can see, here's where you can see that little additional few feet above the trees from this point in Watch Chase. And here's another view also from Watch Chase, northwest of the site. You can see from this photo simulation what it would look like peeking above the trees there. And that's our presentation. I'm happy to take your questions. Yes, sir.
So will this enable 5G for Verizon?
This will bring what Verizon offers currently, state-of-the-art Verizon Wireless. 5G is being rolled out first into urban areas in Virginia. It's first in Virginia Beach and Richmond. As you probably know, 5G is being provided by small cells that are very close together. It doesn't propagate very far. But when 5G comes to our area, of course, sites will be upgraded as it's available.
So it would go on this tower?
At this point, it's 4G, right.
Any other questions from citizens?
I guess I was a little confused. You said because it's a scenic highway, it has to be rated at on higher level, but there's two already there that are in a mid. Why are they mid and this one above? Because it's going to be side by side. Doesn't make sense.
The two that were already there, I didn't go through the zoning process on those, and of course they went through years ago, and I don't know the process they followed. Is that your question?
Yeah, maybe it wasn't a scenic highway yet or something. I don't know.
It was since then, but yeah, they went through the requisite approval processes through the county. So
this one is different only because it's new. It's not different.
the other ones went through this process in the past.
And it's taller.
Yeah, it is slightly taller than the other two on the property, and yeah, the avoidance area applies to areas within, I believe, 200 feet of a state scenic highway. So there might be others that are off 250 that didn't go through this process, but every other tower on the site would have gone through the same approval by the county.
But I think the question is it a tier 3 because it's 10 feet taller than the tree line, and tier 2 is tree line only, or is it a tier 3 because if the tier 2 ones are in the same location, they would be tier 3?
It shares the same design as the tier 2, but it's a tier 3 because of its location and not located in the same area.
And the previous ones don't share that same, the previous ones are tier 2, but.
I believe they were approved as tier 3s, as special use permits, or predating the
the scenic highway.
The way I understood
predating the current wireless policy. I think it was designated as a scenic highway in the 70s or the 80s, so it's been quite some time. There are others, we've updated our wireless policy intermittently over time. I think one might have been approved before we had the tier system. But yeah, this is a tier 3 because of its location within 200 feet of a state scenic highway.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. Is that?
It tripped us up too as staff when this came in. It was the night before the balloon test. We realized, wait, this needs to be refiled as a different application.
Actually, I have another question about the balloon. When did you do the balloon test and how long was it about? Because we've been away. I don't know if we missed it or.
Do you remember the date? Say two weeks ago, roughly.
Oh, no. Longer than that.
Probably
first of the year, wasn't it?
It was,
Do you remember?
Thursday, January 16th, started at, I believe, 8 a.m., had it up for at least a couple hours in the morning.
Is the public notified of the balloon test?
The ordinance does not require public
So we
notification.
wouldn't have known about it?
Right.
It would not be at the applicant's discretion.
Just as an aside, wouldn't that be an interesting thing to announce to the public?
Well, the reason why we decided not to do that is we've had, this was filed as a tier 2, and we didn't know until after the balloon test that we needed to take that submission back and refile as a tier 3. If it had been a tier 3, we might have sent more notices, but the reason why I chose not to send notices for this tier 2 balloon test is we've had them before, and it really stirred up the neighborhood and got people very upset when it was something that they were not going to see at all. and I knew they wouldn't see it at all. And we sent it to a wide range of people, and it got a lot of people upset unnecessarily. And then we did the test, and, you know, I just didn't want to cause trouble when it wasn't going to be something.
Well, not to be argumentative, I certainly understand that, but we live beyond that one blue balloon site that you listed where it was non-visible, and our property rises. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if from our property and from our neighbors' properties, you would see it. And it would have been interesting to know.
Do you see the ones currently?
Well, we
Ones that are
had
there.
that issue before when it was built 15 feet higher than it should have been.
I think I did hear about that.
Now I can see it still through the trees, but I understand. I'm not trying to be argumentative,
No,
I'm just saying, it would have been great, I would have been out looking around for the balloon if I had known about it, because our property is beyond that one balloon site, and if the land rises, obviously, at a higher elevation, you're gonna see more, that's all.
And simply having had that problem once where they said, well, we did a balloon test. Well, we didn't see a balloon test. We didn't know when there was a balloon test. And we sure saw them at the top of the thing building it suddenly, you know, and that caused a problem.
You want to speak, Mr. Cross?
Hi, my name is Bob Cross. I happen to be the owner of the property. As far as I know, I've had towers on the property on and off for about 10 to 12 years. And in that course of time, the one series of complaints I have received was the last tower that was installed was put up, two things were wrong. It was put up some number of feet, I've forgotten how many, too high, and it was not painted properly to blend in. That was addressed to me. I addressed it to the tower owners, and they, of course, came in. The tower was lowered, it was painted, and so I think that was all, was probably yours. I'm not sure it was complete. Somewhere, Gallops Ridge Road, is that your area?
We're all Gallops Ridge, yeah.
So,
and that's the area that I'm talking about, is that ridge line where the houses are highest, exactly.
but again, I've had one complaint over the years on towers. That complaint was answered and the issues were resolved.
I have a question first for Andrew. Is there for tier 3 a notification, like radius for a balloon test?
We've had them before, so
Yeah.
I'm very surprised this is optional.
Yeah, so staff cannot require an applicant to do a notification balloon test. That's not in the ordinance. I know we're planning to update the wireless policy soon. That could be something that could be explored. Tier 2 applications do require notices to abutting property owners. That is standard procedure for all site plans and reviews. I believe with this we used either between a quarter-mile and half-mile radius for notifications for this. So I know I included, I think, a couple of properties off of Broad Axe, I believe, and most of the areas on 250 nearby, including a decent chunk of Fox Chase.
So I'm confused. Did I misunderstand? Is it required for tier 3 applicants to give that notification and it's not, or it is, or I didn't understand what you said?
Yeah, all special use permits require community meeting, which is what this is. So that's a separate provision from the balloon test requirement in the ordinance. So this is, we did a notification for this. Typically when we do these tier 3 towers, we usually send, in lieu of a balloon test, or in lieu of a community meeting, we just do the balloon test and notify the neighbors. This one became a little bit out of order due to the kind of processing mistake that was made. So we're kind of doing this backwards, where we had the balloon test first and then the mailings went out.
I just want to be clear on the balloon test does not require notification.
That's correct, yeah. Section 5 of the zoning ordinance does not require balloon test to have public notice. It's something that
Here's a
applicants chose to do.
What we normally do is for a special use permit tier 3 wireless facility, we'll send one notice that has the information for the balloon test and the community meeting. And we'll send as wide a radius as staff recommends. It could be up to half a mile, for the Western Albemarle site, it was a large area. But for a tier 2, which is what we filed this as, that is a purely administrative process. And so you wouldn't necessarily, there wouldn't be hearings. So notifying people about something that they don't necessarily have an opportunity to speak on can be problematic. But once we had the balloon test, then we learned that it would be a tier 3, and so then we sent the notices out for this community meeting.
Can we possibly request a second balloon test so that we can not waste time and effort and money to kind of
What is
figure
the-
out whether
I
it's
guess
too tall?
what's the concern about the balloon test?
They're gonna see it. We just wanna know if we're gonna see it.
Yeah, and how high up, you know, this,
So
the
it's-
last time it went way above the trees from our view, it wasn't even close, and it just simply, we just discovered it later, you know, so I wonder if it would not be wasteful to
So
perhaps review.
the height of the tower is based on the closest tree within 25 feet that we can find. That, and we usually try to find the tallest tree around. Most of the trees are close in height, usually. This one is, let's see, Lori, it's a 113-foot tall tree. I don't know what the heights of those other towers are at. Those other towers were probably based on tree heights that are now, Mr. Cross, I don't know how old those are, but maybe 10 years old. And so those trees have grown a little bit, probably. But that's how the tower height is based on the ordinance. So we don't just pick it, you know, we're not just ordinarily throwing out a tower height. We're going by the ordinance and following the procedure for determining how tall a tower
Is it possible to do, instead of doing a whole balloon test, just to do a photo simulation from their property? Like,
We don't
could you-
have
you can't-
photos from their property.
Right, but could you figure out if the site would be, if the tower would be visible from their property? But I guess a courtesy or something.
Yeah, let's do that.
Andrew, does the county have technology to do that kind of thing?
I think we, in the past, we've conducted kind of a rough visibility analysis based on tree cover that we use is not entirely accurate, it's just a guess. But we can talk more about what might be a solution that we can help vet this from some of the other properties, recognizing that the balloon test, this is kind of all out of order, so we acknowledge that, and that was not ideal for this, but we can talk about how we can find a way. I don't know if we can require a second balloon test at all based on the ordinance, but we can see if we can find a way to test that. What road do you say you all lived on?
We live on Broad.
Okay, we drove, I know our, Chris Taggart, their design planner, myself, drove by Broadax on our way back after the balloon test. I believe the balloon was still up, we didn't see it. And also will note that the ordinance does not require invisibility of a balloon, of a monopole, but rather that is cited to minimize visibility. In this case, with this tier 3, we're especially looking from the entrance corridor of the scenic highway, which is Route 250. But we acknowledge that you could see it from Fox Chase, but the distance made it not as intrusive or as visible over time. So we can, I think if you can see the towers from your house that are on the property currently, we can maybe find a way to figure out, assess those.
You know, you don't live by us. And my feeling at this point is that all three of you are talking around the issue. The issue is we want to know if we can see it. And if you did the balloon test at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 8 o'clock in the morning I was sitting down eating breakfast in the house. So there's no way in hell I would have seen the balloon. Okay? So if you're being open and honest about it and presenting it to us at this meeting, and because you represent the county, not them, you sound right now like you're representing them, not us. So, could you repeat the balloon test, and if not, why not?
We can check with Verizon on that. We've done multiple balloon tests for many sites, so it's not out of the question. We'll check on it.
Can I just add a comment to something that you said earlier? So the previous, it isn't the one that's before us now, but a previous test where you notified a large area and people were upset about it. And so what you were implying was that was a mistake, because then you ran the test and then people found, if I understood your train of thought, that they weren't as upset as they thought they might be.
It was a very unusual site. It was embedded in a very forested area on the side of the mountain, and we did an extremely wide notice, and people in subdivisions who we knew would never be able to see it thought we were talking about a giant lattice tower, and we're writing, long letters, obviously full of angst, and it just seemed also overblown and unnecessary. I felt like we stirred up so much trouble. It's not that we don't try to allow people to evaluate for themselves, it's just that that was a special case where we didn't think that there would be any chance of visibility. This is not exactly like that because Granite, the one that we're proposing, is taller than the two that are there. I don't know how tall they are, but I would think we are because the trees have grown.
But in the effort of being transparent, I would say that a situation like what we have now could be avoided by that notification. So whether people have angst about it or not, it could be alleviated if they have the ability to see for themselves.
When we certainly would have done that if it had been filed as a tier 3, no question about it.
Right, but it wasn't, that was something that was unusual, and so this might be a circumstance to try to have, to fix it back.
Well, and I also feel like it's not totally fair to blame the counties,
No.
because you could have known that it was supposed to be tier 3.
That's true.
Because you knew the ordinance as well as they did, so both of you messed up filing it as tier 2.
That is true. You're right there. I messed up.
Just to say, I mean, it seems like an honest mistake because
Right.
of the situation, but I
Right.
just.
I agree. And
It's
to
not
be fair-
Andrew's fault that it got filed as tier 2, and it's not your fault that they didn't get notified, it's just, can we come up with a solution?
And to be fair to Andrew, he's not here to support the applicant, he's here to just provide the facts about the way the ordinance works.
Yeah, the
So
existing
he's not
ordinance didn't
saying-
require a notice, so
Yeah.
they didn't send a notice, and we can't blame them for that.
Right.
So I was there about 8:20, and I guess it was calm when you put it up at 8 o'clock, and you must have gotten some pictures right then, but literally at 8:20, it was horizontal. And I had to bring it in, and that was the end of it. So and maybe they put it up an hour later or something like that, but there was a very small window in which it was visible at all, no matter what. So all that indicates, I think, for a better solution would be to do it
Yeah, that's.
and make sure there's decent notice. And I will agree with Jenny that it's far better to tell people so they have a choice, so that they can decide to be interested or not. And it's always, there may be a little kerfuffle at the beginning, but it'll have a better result at the end. So,
I have one question. One thing that wasn't discussed is how many people is this going to benefit? Like, obviously, you're putting it up for a purpose. Do you have any idea how many people it serves, or what radius it serves, or anything?
The typical radius for one of these where it's just kind of just above the trees is about like 2 miles at the most, probably. So you're looking at a radius, and all that depends on topography, where you're at, the amount of trees and so forth, so.
Is Western Albemarle High School within 2 miles of this tower?
It's about a mile from me, and this one's about half a mile.
Yeah.
It's about 2 miles.
So you should have propagation maps. Engineers do those all the time. So we should
Sure,
have, we
sure.
should
And
have.
there's another, Lori can answer that.
We should- we
We
should
don't
have
provide
propagation.
propagation maps to the county anymore because of the new state law that was adopted in 2018. And the gist of it is that localities when making zoning decisions
exactly.
shouldn't make the decision based on the business needs of the wireless provider.
No, I'm not contentious about it all, but I'm just saying, before you evaluated the site, your engineers did propagation maps.
Oh, yeah.
They evaluated all that.
Oh, yeah.
And you have it here. I mean,
Oh,
those are
yeah.
not secret, and there's no
Yeah.
reason not to present them to show the benefit of it.
Well, they are proprietary, so we're not giving them, I don't have
Yeah, I
them.
don't.
Verizon has them, but we don't have them to provide to you, so.
So it can be calculated, it's not very hard.
I'm sorry, I missed you.
No, that's okay. No, I'm just saying, because it may.
The answer to
make
Matt's
your case.
question exists somewhere, that's all.
Right, it may make your case, right, to say, hey, we're improving service this much.
Well, we certainly are improving service because that's why we build these facilities. This is obviously only tall enough for one carrier. So this is being built for Verizon wireless service. It's not being built to lease it to another carrier. or, make money in that way. So they wouldn't be building it if they didn't need the additional service. It's very expensive with these.
We're here because Verizon has, usually there's a network issue that we're building these additional sites.
Sure.
There's some network issue that they're having, and so they need additional capacity or coverage or whatever they're trying to do.
I have a tree question. Can you explain you were talking about it a minute ago about how you select the height that's allowed, above the tree line? I'm curious if the 2 trees being removed are included in the calculation for what height you can go to and.
No, so we pick what's called the reference tree.
Yep.
And that's usually, you try to do a survey of the tree, but it's kind of hard to get the exact tippy top. Where's the exact tippy top of the tree? So sometimes they have to do a tape drop. But they do survey it. It's a surveyed certificate height. And so what they do is they pick that, and then based on the elevation, we can go 10 feet above that tree. Total, 10 feet. So
And you're picking the tallest one, or how do you pick?
that's normally what we like to do, yeah, because you don't want to pick the shorter one and be in the trees, because then you're providing, your antennas are in the trees and they're shooting directly into the trees. You want to be able to get above the trees so you can propagate your signal out.
And do you do any assessment of how the views would change if the trees that you need to remove are going to be removed afterwards? Because you do all the tests and viewpoint pictures you take are with the trees there.
These trees are the 2 being removed, this one back here.
Yeah.
And this one here, and because they're set back from the road, I would be surprised if it changed the view that much. The road is up here. But
I
we
kind of don't care to see it from the
the
road.
balloon test has to be done before the hearings, and so we can't do it, once the trees are cut.
Sure.
Because we can't cut the trees unless we get the rezoning, so it's kind of a chicken and egg situation.
Is there a limited number of trees you're allowed to remove, or you could, you pick the ones you're going to take down, but could you have picked 30 trees to take down if you had wanted to?
We try to remove as few as possible. In other words, the site is selected to disturb as little as possible. So did you want to add?
No, that's great.
How much higher is the new tower than the old?
We don't know what the height of the old is.
Andrew, I don't have any.
I don't have the site plan files with me, so I'm not sure what the heights are, but they are shorter than the proposed tower.
Or you don't know how much higher?
We can pull that from the building permit files and the site plan files, but I don't have that right now, but I can get back to you on that.
Why, just a technical question, I guess, why does it need to be higher? If AT&T and whoever else is
He
out
said the
there-
trees have grown.
The trees grow over
He
time.
said the trees have grown since these
Yeah.
towers.
And so that's been an issue with some of our locations in Albemarle County where before Verizon bought Altel, they were Altel and they built, structures 20 years ago. And so some of those structures trees have grown and they're below the trees. And so they've actually come back to the county and asked for an extension to be able to raise our equipment above those trees.
You can see that these are below the trees currently.
Is there any consideration of the health of the reference tree? So you've had an analysis of it to make sure it's going to be around?
We have
Not
to do.
derecho wise, but I mean, this is something that is expected to stay and do its job as far as scenic protection, buffering of the road.
Well, actually, the evaluation of whether there's sufficient buffering is a slightly different analysis than the height determination. So that the height is determined by one single tree, the reference tree. And you could be in a forest, but you still have one single reference tree. What the ARB does, the Architectural Review Board, has evaluated this site, and they looked at all of our slides and our plans, and they have to determine if, number one, the ground equipment is sufficiently screened, and they had comments about what kind of fencing we should have and that type of thing, the height of the fencing. But they also have to determine if the monopole is sufficiently screened. So they do look at what type of buffering is along the entrance corridor, because that's what they're evaluating, 250 being an entrance corridor.
I'm glad you mentioned fencing, because over on Owensville 10 years ago, the little bushes are still about this tall, and all that stuff is still sitting out in plain view, so I like the idea.
Verizon prefers fences too, because it keeps people out of the
there will be landscaping along here instead of just around the compound. Any more questions?
Just a comment, and that is, on the one hand, it seems like an ideal location. You've already got 2 other ones there. Rather than having poles all over the place, it seems ideal. It also seems like some of the neighbors have some concerns. It sounds like we ought to address them. As someone who bought a piece of property for the view, I totally understand where you sit.
Just having been through it once, where it suddenly was way above the tree line from our neighbors and our view. It wasn't like it was, we're all for connectivity, so it's not that we're against that. It just didn't fit in that, the way it was. And it was such a waste of everybody's time and money to have to change it.
And you know how the process works, so you know that we are required to comply with our plans. If we were to be approved the special use permit, we certainly would have to build this monopole the height that we've shown that we will build it and that it's approved for. And so if it were too tall, we would have to change it to be in compliance.
We understand that point, obviously. You comply with the law and you get a special use permit and it dictates how high it is. But what we're saying, I guess, is real simple, is we don't know what that means. We have a view shed of the Blue Ridge Mountains with a pole sticking right up in the middle of it, that's all. I would just like to know if that's what the result of your efforts is going to be.
Yeah, I do understand.
I have no idea at this point.
So Andrew, would you be a good contact
Yeah, I'm,
for previous applications to keep neighbors informed? You could collect emails or give out
yeah,
yours. and-
absolutely, yeah. I've got my card, let's try to get some emails, I can put together a mailing list. I think I'll talk to Nate and Lori to see what we can do about further assessing visibility and what we can do. And I'm happy to come visit your property as well, and let's get some photos and see what we can do to help understand what the impacts really are. But I've got my card, I'm happy to talk to you all outside.
As you're packing up, can you address the fall zone? And, because my initial question was, what do you mean you're putting something 115 feet tall, like Route 250, where it's going to fall across the road?
Well, interestingly, the fall zone does not apply to the right of way, so we do have.
That was a surprise.
Yes.
Others may have the same question.
We have quite a few wireless facilities throughout the county, as you know, that are closer than the height of the pole to the right of way. That is not treated the same as a property boundary. But otherwise, we comply with all of the setbacks and fall zones. In a catastrophic situation, this pole would certainly fall within the boundary line.
What I was told, and I love affirmation or not, if it's wrong, is that these things are designed to break and fall straight down.
No.
Okay, I don't feel reassured anymore. Now you have to start over again.
They're designed, their strongest point is their base. So they're not designed to fall straight over. They're designed to collapse within themselves. So they would break at like the middle, like a middle point of 40% or 60%, whatever they design.
It would still end up in like a footprint of the
Okay,
tower.
so that sounds sort of what I heard. I just didn't express it
Yeah.
properly.
It's not gonna like
come from.
It doesn't make that.
It was
Telescope.
All right, but it's not going to go wham across the road.
No.
Hit David Mitchell's house on the other side or whatever.
I mean, the trees might fall down if there was a derecho before the tower,
Okay.
because they're designed to stand. There's a wind requirement, there's a code requirement in Albemarle County, so we have to meet that code requirement.
As long as there's some brake zones in there so it doesn't hit the roadway, that'll be good.
All right. Thank you all for your time, and I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you for allowing us.
Thank you.
I think, Mike, we're gonna make an announcement.
Yeah, I had one real quick. So I had one of the residents near Yancey Mill asked me.
We're still gonna talk for minutes, so if you need to talk, please step outside.
This is just an announcement I'm talking about.
Excuse us,
We're still
push down the
meeting still
Y'all can go
happening.
That's why I allow paper books, all that stuff to get out of the way. Hey, do you have a relative named Janice Rediger?
She's my sister.
It's the outpatient.
Oh, really?
All right.
Yeah, my announcements for one of the residents who lives near Yancey Mills, so we know the special exception presentation was given in November, so they asked me if I could notify, and we have a large audience, of the folks that, the dates coming up, so the special exceptions going before the planning commission, so the date is set now, so that's March 24th, so I'm assuming that that's still true and accurate, and then plan for the board of supervisors on April 15th. They need comments so they can be part of the planning commission presentation by this Friday, the 13th.
And just to clarify, this is the presentation that Valerie gave last month?
That was November.
Feels really recent.
Go back by
It was a while ago, apparently. That was.
So the board date is April 15th. Comments for the planning commission presentation need to be received by this Friday. If they're received after Friday, then they can be heard by the planning commission, as you know, but won't be a part of the report. And then if you have, if there are any comments after that, they need to be for the board of supervisors by April 1st, so they can be present for the April 15th meeting.
So just to clarify, that's if you email staff and they want it to go into our packet. So we would have, staff's analysis, the applicant's packet, and then in the back of it are emails. You can email the planning commission and the board.
Anytime you want.
A couple of people on this project were like, I'll just email each planning commissioner, and there's a place on the planning commission page of the board where it just says email the planning commission, and it goes to everyone, it's just one click, it's like albemarleplanning.org.
I think it's just like.
Planning commission at Albemarle.
It's BOS.
And then that's a good way, because it also goes to other than just planning commission, it goes to a few staff. So you can communicate, just to be clear, past beyond that date to the planning commission directly, for those of you out there who want to.
So those dates were given to them by the planning commission?
They must have been by staff.
Staff,
Yeah,
they
that's
need it to
print
make it part of our
packets,
packet, and those are all at the end of every packet, any email staff have gotten, but some of those are duplicates, because we'll get them too, so I just didn't want people to think they can't send emails after.
You can email and
Yeah.
you want about anything.
So,
And
I mean-
early comments can be considered by staff when they're doing their staff report also. So there is some advantage. If you know your opinion's not going to change, and you want to send it in early, then
right.
they'll be able to use it for thinking about it.
And kind of what's not so helpful sometimes is like getting it at 5:45, the day of planning commission, when we start at 6.
Yeah, that's,
We can't.
but do our best.
I know all commissioners do their best to read every single email, but 20 minutes before our meeting starts, we're not getting it.
That's it.
That's all I have to say. I have put these dates on because we have to meet, we thought we weren't gonna have time today. We could have actually probably done this today, but we don't have a quorum anyway, so it's fine. We'll just, we're gonna have another CCAC meeting this month because there is no community workshop for the master plan, and Andrew really wants us to focus on the master plan as a committee for one meeting without having other stuff on the agenda. So that is the 25th. And hopefully we have a quorum then, we can approve those minutes and these minutes.
Right.
If you can get these minutes done by
Do
then.
my best.
So that's.
Doesn't get easier to do it.
Would it be worth just checking to see if people can make that so that we don't?
Well, we had, Andrew sent like 3 polls to see if that date would work.
Okay, no,
And we were supposed to vote, so I don't know if we voted. I voted.
I think I did too. Maybe.
Good.
I don't know.
Pending biocontamination.
Yeah, maybe we'll all be quarantined.
We may have to phone and tell.
We'll have a
conference or
Wait, that's
tele.
it. And joking aside, is there the so we're gonna have these things, is the
I'll just
staff
leave it just,
considering,
I mean, I don't know if you.
considering possibilities for virtual meetings?
I think we just need to wait
You
and
can't
have
do
county
that.
direction. I
If
mean, I was in
Andrew
the meeting
cancels
last-
the meeting or if the library's,
Yeah.
where the Meadows is closed, then we'll
Yeah.
cross that
We
bridge.
just
Oh,
have
we
to wait.
definitely need to stay away from the meadows, absolutely. They're not gonna take our jobs.
Well, there won't, I mean,
There's no way.
we're not gonna be in their houses or anything.
Yeah,
No,
but,
they go there to eat. Oh, come
Well,
on.
hopefully they clean it.
yeah, their laundry room is there too. They're there all the time.
Well, I'll leave that to Andrew. This is-
Yeah, we can mention that to
this
him.
meeting. We can, yeah, we can,
And Yogi's too.
I mean, yeah, who knows what.
What time is that meeting?
That meeting is from 7 to 8:30.
So, and this is the end of this term, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing.
yes,
Yes, it is the end. There are several of you who have to reapply for this committee. Your terms are up. Andrew's outside talking to those neighbors, but maybe he'll come back in. Jenny, do you remember who's due, Ann? It's,
I go out.
Brian, and everybody who's joined for Brian.
Is your line not?
No, no, no.
I think you're on the
I
list.
just have to reply.
I know you're on the list.
Hang on, I'll pull it up. Here we go.
I'm mid-transaction.
Costas, Josh, Kelly, who already quit, Brian, Valerie, Joe, Katya, David. So all of your terms are up. Your,
I don't think I can.
Our eligibility is, for most of us, is still good.
well, I would have to check on you. You're done.
Are
So
you,
what-
No, you're not done. You just got
No, it's 3.
You can't be done.
It's
You're not allowed
terms,
to.
right? Isn't it 3
well,
terms?
it's two 2-year terms, but the board can approve a third 2-year term.
So it's 3.
If that's out there.
Yes, so it's
He's
three.
taking it away. If you answer yes, it's 3.
All of you are drafting.
There was a time where we were happy to have people, now we're fortunate to have people.
Yeah,
wanting
now we
to
have,
be
so
on.
even if all of you wanted to reapply and were reapproved, then we would still have one slot for Kelly. So the community is welcome to apply. We have an opening, at least one opening.
Okay.
And, right, Andrew? I'm
Yes,
talking about
sure.
elections
At
now.
least one, yeah.
Yeah.
And next month,
It's when we have to apply.
in April, we have to apply now, and then we will, next month starts the new board, right? So I don't know when you guys,
Usually it's the first meeting of the month if.
So what's the
unless
deadline
Saturday strikes
for everyone
for
to
the closed
reapply?
meeting. So it's either the first or the third Wednesday.
Do we get notice?
You should,
You
you should.
should get notice from the clerk's office if
Yeah.
your term's up,
So
but
your
that's
terms
also
are
said-
expiring 3/31.
Mine, I already got notice like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So did I.
Yeah,
And
but
then-
Travis
and then
sent
when
them
you
out
let me
really,
put it
really
in.
early and nobody paid any attention because they knew they had 4 more months
So
to
it's
go.
two,
So-
yeah, they were sent
I
twice.
sent, so.
So you might have already
I'll
reapplied.
check with Travis. Presumably mine is just sitting and waiting.
Check with the
Yeah.
county clerk's office, clerk of the board.
So you
Do
did
not send
your-
anything to me, I do not.
Like you put
No, no, no,
it in
sorry.
your-
I just have to clarify.
That's a.
You can check and see if you've already reapplied.
And
I'll go find it.
or you can just go
Yeah,
on
the
the
website.
boards and agenda, or,
I can handle it.
commissions.
Clerk's order. Okay.
And then we have to do officers, so chair and vice chair and secretary. Again.
So that's next month.
Next month we'll do that. So I guess, I don't know how you want to handle that, but I think last time we decided that if you want to be chair, if you want to self-nominate for chair, vice chair, or secretary, you would email Ann. Is
Okay.
that what we decided last
I'm
time?
happy to take the list, absolutely.
And you can, I mean, you can nominate.
And then we'll just decide as a group who wants to do it.
Right, so, but you could nominate someone, assuming that you've asked them and they'd like to, and do that to Ann as well.
Yeah.
But it's good to make sure they would like to do it before you nominate them.
It's less embarrassing.
Anyway, it's too bad we're missing so many people tonight.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll watch.
Maybe between Andrew and you could kick out an email to remind people if they didn't get the email or got it a long time ago and
I'll
forgot.
send it to Travis right now.
And then
Maybe
also
think
about,
about
and also about
nominations.
officers,
Yeah,
or whatever you call these positions.
yeah,
You can circulate the link, the sign up link too.
Yeah,
yeah, that would be good. That takes you right to the boards and commissions.
well, right to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So while you're outside, I just reiterated our meeting again on the 25th, pending, we're not all quarantined. We had some concerns about being in the meadows. because there are
Yeah.
immunocompromised residents.
Yeah, I think, as we look forward to the next couple of weeks and just the future meetings, I think, we're waiting on direction, I think, from county exec's office. That's where most communication is coming from,
Yeah.
about how we'll handle community meeting procedures moving forward. I know that
Yeah.
it's a concern. I think a couple members expressed they would not be here tonight out of that concern, so I think we'll
Yeah.
try to figure out how we move forward with, community meeting requirements and full transparency with, the challenge of
Yeah.
everything happening. But we do have that special meeting in 2 weeks from tonight at the Meadows. Tentatively, we'll see to play it by ear to see if we need to make changes before then. We do have a architecture preservation kind of focus group on Friday the 27th, so a couple days after that. We're sending out mailers to folks from the historic district as well, those property owners. But if you all want contact info, please come grab a postcard from me. And again, with that, we'll continue to monitor, everything going on with the outbreak. And,
If you have a big pile of those, we could leave them at the circulation desk and people will get them.
yeah.
Usually for bookmarks.
And you obviously know that, that probably will come sooner rather than later, because both UVA and Tech have stopped classes.
Yeah.
It's now online, so it's moving very fast.
Yeah, I think we're just waiting for further direction about how we want to handle this and
Yeah.
maintain
Changing
the community
everything.
requirements.
Well, I appreciate you guys all coming, and I'm glad we got these meetings in, so at least I can stay well. Yeah, stay well.
That's all we have.